The pressure to start something new. But is the timing right? The ambition to rise up, the drive to succeed, needing to be recognized. These are all pressures that this cycle of the human design weather for July 6th to 12th, 2025 will bring. Well, hello there. I'm Margot Fraser, your guide through the cosmic weather. As a certified human design professional and intuitive coach, I'm on a mission to help you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. In this podcast, Human Design Weather or Not, we'll explore the conditioning influences of the planetary motions, the transit field. You can't avoid the conditioning pressures. You'll likely notice their effects playing out around you, but rather than you reacting and being pulled off track, this awareness will empower you to navigate the cycles, staying true to your authentic nature and taking advantage of opportunities when correct for you. So let's dig into this cycle. Hard to believe that we're already at July 6th. Well, this cycle starts July 6th at 5:14 p.m., going until July 12th at 2:51 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Universal time coordinates, that's July 6th at 11:14 p.m., going until July 12th at 8:51 p.m. Remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. Now, we always start with the Sun Earth activations because that's 70% of the conditioning field. We're staying with two gates in the root center. Again, this cycle, the root center is a motor and a pressure center, bringing its adrenalized drive. So we know this cycle comes with pressure, energy that wants to rise up and eventually get to the throat for manifestation. The sun has moved into gate 53, the trait of beginnings, also called development. It's part of the abstract experiential circuitry. It has a keynote that says development as a structured progression that is both steadfast and enduring. It's the energy to start a new experiential cycle through which you'll learn something new that you can use in the future as you move through a structured progression that's beginning, middle, end, regardless of the change that it brings. So this trait brings the fuel of steadfastness through the process. This will bring a pressure for you to start something new. So you might feel that this cycle. But if you're not patient and ensure that what you start is really something that you can complete by following your strategy and authority, it's going to result in frustration. If you have everything ready to go to start something new, you just need a boost of energy and drive. This could be a really helpful cycle. Maybe there's something that you've been procrastinating on starting. And then as you move through the experiential cycle, you'll eventually gain the growth and maturation that our experiential nature is about. It's pointing at gate 42 in the sacral center, and it's part of the channel of maturation. The caution here, though, is if you jump into starting something new, without completing the cycle that you're already in, you'll result in wasting energy and having to repeat the same cycle over and over again because there was never that completion to bring it to maturation. And that maturation, what that includes is reflecting and gaining the wisdom and lessons after the cycle comes to completion, and then applying that wisdom to your next cycle of evolution so that you don't get stuck in repeating the same kind of experience over and over again. The Earth has moved into gate 54, the trait of ambition. Its nickname is the Marrying Maiden. This is part of the tribal circuitry. And think of tribe as your family, your communities, both social and in business. Its keynote says interaction in its mundane social context, but also one's mystical and cosmic relationships. This is rooted in relationships we develop to gain needed resources on the material plane. It's part of the entrepreneurial side of the tribal circuitry that ultimately wants to succeed in gaining the necessary resources, both materially and spiritually, for yourself, for your tribe. This root pressure brings the drive to climb the ladder through supporting another's success and being able to also rise up the ladder as a result of that. Mutually beneficial relationships and support are really at the foundation of the tribal circuitry, and ambition has the potential to enhance transformation that improves the chances of success of getting those resources. What our businesses are really geared around. That's why we say it's part of the entrepreneurial side of the circuitry. You may have noticed that the keynote also speaks to one's mystical and cosmic relationships. What is our larger relationship to the totality? Ultimately, bringing material resources for the tribe isn't enough on its own. We also look for our spirits to be nurtured, to be fed. The most mystical line in human design in all of the gates is found in line 4 of this trait, and it's called enlightenment and endarkenment. As you master the instincts to operate on the material plane, there's the potential for both material and spiritual transformation. The drive to transform is about taking the raw resource or talent that this trait contains and bring out its potential. So you might feel more pressure to fulfill your own potential over this cycle. This trait not only can bring the ambition to rise up the material and spiritual ladders, it also brings the pressure to find your allies, the people who can help you to rise up through you supporting them and receiving support in return. The caution here is that if the ego gets involved and you overtly express that you're the one who's really responsible for the success of the other, like you'd be nothing without me, or if you don't wait for the correct ally or allies according to your own strategy and authority, it's not likely to go well. And there'll could be the tendency here to end up bitter and feeling betrayed. This is also a trait that wants to be recognized. Think about wanting to rise up, for example, the corporate ladder. It's hard to rise up if no one's noticing you. So there could be a tendency towards calling more attention to yourself this cycle or seeing others do that. This is a cycle where you might find those allies that support your transformation, but watch that you don't invest in something or someone out of this drive, this pressure to progress that's not correct for you. Again, follow your own strategy and authority. When we look at these two traits together, it could bring the pressure for you to ambitiously start something new, which could be at the right or wrong time, depending on whether you're following your strategy and authority or not. Okay, let's move into our channels now. A reminder that when the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So it has a big impact that way. We have one medium-term channel that will be with us for about 10 days. So that's coming in on July 6th at 10:30 p.m., going until July 16th at 10:23 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that comes in July 7th at 4:30 a.m., going until July 16th at 4:23 p.m. We have Mars in Gate 64, the trait of confusion in the head center, with its pressure to think, and in this case, make sense of experiences. Connecting with Gate 47, the trait of oppression and realization in the Ajna center that's being activated by the south node of the moon. Together, they create the channel of abstraction, a design of mental activity mixed with clarity. This is a collective, abstract, experiential channel, bringing the mental pressure to make sense, to put the puzzle pieces together to determine how an experience fits into the movie of your life. This is not an easy process. It takes time to get clarity and then get those ahas, which is why Gate 47 is called both oppression and realization. As the keynote says, it brings a busy mind and a reminder that any decisions that you make should be from your strategy and authority, not from the mind. So while this is present, yes, we're going to have more mental activity brought in. Let it run in the background. Don't let it take over your decision making. The other three channels that we have are being created by the transit of the moon. This means that they're just little tasters, little samples, because the moon only activates a trait for about 10 to 11 hours, give or take. The first one, well, it actually came in right at the end of the last cycle, and it's going to go out on July 7th at 3:33 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's going out July 7th at 9:33 a.m. The moon has moved into gate 34, the trait of power in the sacral center. The sacral center is a motor that generates life force energy. It's connecting with its electromagnetic gate 20, Venus position in the throat center. Together, they create the channel of charisma, a design where thoughts must become deeds. This is an individual channel that brings the power to take action and be busy. It's also the power to individuate, to be yourself. Ideally, this being busy is about being self-absorbed in something that you love. When you see someone who's really absorbed in what they love, it can be so charismatic. However, it's gate 57 in the splenic center, the trait of intuitive clarity, an acoustic knowing in the now that gives awareness to this channel. We don't have gate 57 in the transit field. So if you don't have gate 57 in your own chart, you can end up being very busy for the sake of being busy. A design where thoughts must become deeds and just burning energy on things that really are not of value to you. A reminder that individual channels and traits can move into melancholy. So there could be the melancholy of not being able to use one's power in the now, or not being able to be here in the now. The next channel we have is coming in July 7th at 3:33 a.m. So it moves right from the one we were just in to this one, going until 2:41 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's starting July 7th at 9:33 a.m., going until 8:41 p.m. We have the moon moving into gate 9, the trait of focus in the sacral center, connecting with its electromagnetic gate 52, the trait of inaction, Uranus position in the root center. Together, they create the logical channel of concentration, a design of determination, bringing that opportunity to sit still and focus and concentrate on something logical, problem solving and finding or mastering a pattern like you would if you were a musician, for example. So we think of experimenting sometimes in this practice and pattern recognition, and finding the correct pattern often is more experimental, being in some laboratory with chemicals, but it also applies to the practice that's needed to master any kind of skill. This is a channel that brings an intensity to all the other traits in your design. The caution is that if you're unsure of what to concentrate on, it could lead to frustration. Then we have on July 8th at 11:33 p.m. going until July 9th at 10:20 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's July 9th at 5:33 a.m. going until 4:20 p.m. We have the moon moving into gate 10, the trait of behavior of the self and self-love or self-hate In the G center, which is the center associated with love, identity, and direction in life, connecting with Uranus position, gate 20, once again, that trait of contemplation and the now in the throat center. Together, they create the channel of awakening, a design of commitment to higher principles. Once again, part of the individual circuitry wanting to bring through mutation, something new, through a pulse of knowing, and this can be very self empowering. This channel is about expressing self love and acceptance of yourself, or self hate and non acceptance of yourself in the now. This is the identity in the G center connecting to the throat. So, with this channel, if you're criticized for the way that you're behaving, expressing your love for self or hate for self, if you're criticized, it can really feel like who you are is being criticized. So there can be a real sensitivity to criticism, especially when you're speaking from your truth as yourself. There can also be pressure to want to be recognized, which can be attention seeking type behavior. So we're seeing that in a couple places here with that gate 54, the gate of ambition in the root center, and with this channel as well. This channel operates the best when you're invited to speak, and of course, following your strategy and authority. That brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. So your not self mind could start to think that they're a part of you, even when it's not something you have in your own design. The main change that we have from the last cycle is that on July 7th, the nodes of the moon will move from line 5 into line 4. So, gate 22, the individual trait of grace or disgrace and openness or closeness to social interaction, is in line 4, called sensitivity. It has a developmental theme that says the modification of behavior to enrich interactions. Its exaltation says a mediumistic simplicity that rejects elaborate rituals, the possibility of social openness through rejection of formality. The detriment says an over reliance on the mechanics of style that can abort potentially significant relationships. The limitation of social openness through the need for formality. We can expect to see these graceful and disgraceful expressions of this trait as being very informal and open socially. Take that tie off, put your feet up, relax, or being very rigid in requiring formality in a way that closes and constricts the way that social interactions play out. Gate 22 can also bring attentive listening to others or not. It's in the emotional center, so it depends on one's mood. Gate 47, the position of the south node of the moon, is in the collective abstract circuitry. Gate 47, the gate of realization and oppression in the Ajna center. We saw this in one of the channels. It's sitting in line 4, called repression, which also has a developmental theme that says the constraints of external oppression. Remember that in this trait, oppression is the pressure brought to it to mentally make sense of things, to put the puzzle pieces together. And this is a fourth line, and fourth lines always have something fixed within them. So here, although you can make sense of a lot of things, there's always this one thing that can't be resolved. And there can be a tendency to look outside oneself to resolve it. But ultimately, there's an acceptance or not that nothing outside of oneself is going to come in and resolve it. The exaltation says the strength of identity that even in times of the most powerful oppression, I need to make sense of this, can maintain its resources and to some extent ensure their survival for the benefit of others. A sense of identity that can be maintained despite external conditioning, despite the pressures that means from the outside coming in that I'm confused. I need help making sense of this. This doesn't make sense to me. So these things that come in or experiences that you've been through, trying to figure out how that fits in the movie of your life, this exaltation allows you to go through that oppressive process and still maintain the strength of your own identity, not getting lost in that. So it's being able to sit with that unresolved thing and let it run in the background without it taking over the mind. The detriment, though, says when robbed of its light, the moon is lost in darkness, barely able to nourish itself, let alone others. The identity overwhelmed by external conditioning. So this is letting that unresolved issue take over the mind and always looking for someone from the outside to resolve it. There can be mental burnout here. So here we have this environment. When we look at the south and north nodes, that's what they're speaking to, is the environment that's around us. We have this environment where there are interactions that are very open and informal, perhaps talking about things that don't make sense in the way that humanity is operating, or something that you might be struggling to make sense of, but accepting what can't be resolved. Or more likely, since most of the world is operating from the not self, an environment where people are feeling mentally burned out. They just can't make sense of what humanity's doing or what's going on in their own life, and wanting someone or something from the outside to come in and solve that for them, and requiring a high level of formality, following certain rules to be able to talk to someone, for example, that ends up restricting social interaction. Jupiter sitting in gate 52, the logical trait of inaction in the root center. We had this as the sun's position in a previous cycle. This starts in line 3 and then moves to line 4 on the 8th. So line 3 is called controls, and it has a developmental theme that says external enforcement of inaction. The exaltation says the ability by its very nature to understand restraint and the potential and acceptance to use that period to redefine strategies. The energy for acceptance in inaction. The detriment says a deep dissatisfaction with controls that disturb tranquility, leads to emotional withdrawal, and affects vision. The pressure of restraint disturbs tranquility. Well, third lines are always bumping into things and then have to go through the trial and error process. So here, this is being told by someone, for example, to go and be still and concentrate on something, like a parent telling a child, sit down and practice the piano, or some situation that forces this sitting still. In the exaltation, there's an acceptance and you can work through it, and might even find that, hey, through that practice and sitting still, wow, I did develop my talent or skill or whatever it is that I'm working on, and there's an enjoyment in that. In the detriment, the practice interrupted the stillness that you might have been in. And then there can be this resentment where you can really hate any sense of being controlled or told what to do. On the 8th, we move into line 4 called self-discipline. Its exaltation says perfected self-discipline and restraint that deals easily and wisely with impulsive temptations. The energy for restraint, which recognizes the value of stillness and focus. So holding back, right? Staying still. The detriment says, though responsive to the need of a principled control based on understanding of conditions, there is a tendency due to its natural expansiveness to doubt and restlessness. Restless energy and doubt in the face of restraint. Jupiter brings expansions to these qualities, so we could see a bigger ability to sit still and focus, Or we could see, and more likely, again in the world around us, an expansion of restlessness and doubting whether inaction is going to get you to solve the problem or to mastery. Saturn and Neptune, both sitting in gate 25, the trait of spirit of the self, innocence, and universal love, or the polarity. These haven't changed. So Neptune's in line 5, called recuperation. That's about understanding that if your vitality is sapped, you need to withdraw and recuperate. Or in the detriment, you keep pushing your limits until, well, chances are you end up getting sick and you're forced to recuperate. Neptune has that watery nature though, so it might make it difficult to know where you are. How's my energy doing? Really looking after yourself and being yourself while this line is present is important. So be good to your immune system. Saturn sitting in line 4, which is a line called survival, that says the nature of true innocence can be maintained regardless of circumstances. This spiritual warrior, Saturn could bring real discipline to this. Or it could constrain the circumstances in which you're able to stay in that place of presence and innocence. Together, I do see these bringing an emphasis on looking after your immune system, looking after yourself, ensuring that you're recuperating if you're getting run down, or Saturn could bring in its consequences. Uranus, with its unusual nature, is sitting in gate 8, the trait of individual contribution in the throat center. It's in line 6, called communion. It has a developmental theme that says the certainty which grows out of harmony. Its exaltation says the gift of knowing when to contribute creatively, and the detriment is uncertainty in timing and regret despite circumstances. 6 lines generally are not going to contribute unless they can really see that it's going to make a difference. And here, as an individual trait, that it can really be mutative. Even though it's individual, here in this 6th line, there is this attunement to the collective that needs to be there. It's built into this to be able to understand the pattern and the timing of things. You can be present to that and know then when to contribute creatively. Or the polarity. If you don't pay attention to the collective, you're not going to have that timing. Pluto sitting in gate 41, the trait of contraction and decrease in the abstract experiential circuitry. It's in the root. This is a gate of daydreaming and fantasizing about the next experience you want to have, the next feeling you want to have. It brings the pressure to start a new experience. Just a reminder that in the end, it does have to be practical or of value in some way. With all these traits, remember that if you don't have them in your design, it is just pressure from the transit field. You can observe it playing out around you, you can learn from it, but whether there's actually something for you to do with it is according to your own strategy and authority. So don't let it run you. This brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you just want to understand the basics of the body graph at a high level, what's the red and the black about, the geometric shapes, bit of background on the system, you can grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human-design. If you've enjoyed this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could give the episode a like and consider subscribing. All right. Well, this is a cycle where if you're ready to start something new and it's correct for you according to your strategy and authority, you could get a real boost of drive to ambitiously do so with those Sun Earth positions in the root. Just watch that this pressure doesn't have you drop something that's actually correct for you to stick with. We also have 2 other root trait activations, so they could bring their influences to start something new by sitting still, daydreaming about where you want to go, what next experience you want to have, that type of thing. Just remember that ultimately you have to drop any expectations in that case and let things unfold naturally when it comes to experiences. One part at a time, one step at a time, and one experience at a time. Okay, well, have a great cycle. Be kind to one another, and may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.